So we're going to have in the middle of this century, we're going to have this great kingdom of the Goths, in which the Ostrogoths are going to be ruling over Italy and this upper part of in between Greece and Italy, and the Visigoths are going to be ruling over Spain. However, remember that as Alaric II was killed in the battle against Clovis, then Theodoric is going to be taking care of the crown, so he's going to be ruling both in the Visigothic kingdom and in the Ostrogothic kingdom. But as you can see over here, we do not only have the Franks, we do not only have, well, over here we have Clovis, then over here we have Odoacer, yes, this is Theodoric that is going to be uniting the territories of the Visigoths. But over here we also have Justinian, and Justinian is the ruler, the emperor of the East. And remember that by the end of this century, what we're going to be having is that the Eastern Empire, that is this orange color, is going to be reconquering most of the possessions of the empire, mostly in the part of Africa. And they're also going to be conquering the southern part of the Visigothic kingdom. So they are also going to be defeating the Ostrogothic kingdom, and they are then the Lombards are going to be appearing, and they are going to invade Italy, taking advantage of that vacuum of power that was the fact that the Byzantine Empire defeated the Ostrogothic kingdom. So we're going from this a lot of barbarian kingdoms to these very few kingdoms, because if you see over here, all the parts in orange are going to be of the Byzantine Empire. These parts in pink are going to be parts of the Visigoths. The Franks are going to conquer all these big territories in yellow, and finally only the Lombards are going to be ruling over Italy. So we go from a lot of kingdoms to very few kingdoms, and that is because basically these two kingdoms are going to be expanding a lot, the Franks and the Byzantine Empire. So that is why we have over here the Franks, but we also have Justinian, that is going to be the emperor of Byzantium, that is going to be making all these expansions. But then in the 8th century starts with Islam, and Islam is going to be conquering a lot of territories very, very fast. So all these orange territories that used to be a part of the Byzantine Empire are now going to be ruled by the Islamic State, and the Byzantine Empire is just going to be ruling over these very few territories in red. The Franks are still going to be ruling a big bunch of the territory in Europe, including France and Germany. And remember that Islam is going to, well, the end of this century is going to be Islam actually entering the Hispanic Peninsula. So basically this is the century of Islam, from the birth of Muhammad, well, from the moment in which Muhammad receives the word of God. Then he goes to Medina, he reconquers La Mecca, he's able to conquer the whole Arabic Peninsula, and then when he dies, the first caliphates are going to be conquering all these territories over here, and afterwards, after the first four caliphs, the Umayyads are going to take the control of the Islamic territories, and they are going to conquer all of these territories in green. Finally, we have the 8th century, that is basically going to be the Carolingian century. Why? Because yes, what you're going to be having here is that the Abbasids, if you remember, the Abbasids are going to kill the Umayyads, so we have this change in the dynasty, but the last Umayyad is going to be escaping towards Spain and is going to be founding the territory of the Emirate of Al-Andalus. But remember that also the Arabs tried to get into the territories of France, and Charlemagne's grandfather, that is Charles Martel, is going to stop them in the Battle of Poitiers, and he's going to start the rise of the Carolingian family, and they are going to replace the Merovingian family. So the Merovingian family started ruling here with Clovis I, and that was the start of the French kingdom, of the Frankish kingdom, and their family is going to stop ruling over here when the Carolingians start ruling. Also, if you remember well, when Islam enters the peninsula, the Hispanic peninsula, the peninsula of Spain, then we're going to have the end of the Visigothic kingdom. So the Visigoths are going to disappear by the end of the 7th century. Uh, well, yes, by the beginning of the 8th century and the end of the 7th century, these Visigoths that were so important that they sacked Rome, they are going to be practically disappear. Their kingdom is going to disappear in this transition of centuries when Islam enters Europe, and they are going to be conquering Spain, and thus the Visigothic kingdom that used to be Spain is going to disappear, and the Visigoths are going to disappear from from the scene of the world. But this 8th century is going to end precisely here when we're going to have the independent emirate of Cordoba. Remember that Don Pelayo is going to be retaking, is going to be having this small territory in the northern part of Spain when he's going to be founding the kingdom of Asturias. And this is the Frankish Empire, so it is the empire of Charlemagne. And remember that the Pope is going to be taking these territories because he's going to be lying to the father of Charlemagne, Pippin III, and he's going to be saying that those territories were originally given by Constantine, but all that was absolutely false, and they just cheated in order to get those lands in the central part of Italy. Um, but well, now this is the moment in which Charlemagne is named as emperor. This is the end of the 8th century, and thus we enter to the 9th century. So I am going to recommend you to actually add this information in all of your cards, all the ones that we have done so far. These are the early Middle Ages. These first four cards are the early Middle Ages. And also I think that we forgot just over here to write that Lombards invade Italy right in the 5th century. I forgot to do that because when Justinian defeats the Ostrogothic kingdom that was Italy, then the Lombards are going to be invading Italy, and that is important because Charlemagne is going to be defeating the Lombards in order to be giving the Pope these lands. He cannot give these lands to the Pope because they are property of the Lombards, so he conquers the Lombards in order to give these lands to the Pope. In here it says Charlemagne conquers Italy, and that means he defeats the Lombards. So now we have we have the beginning of the late or the low Middle Ages. And why are they different? Well, over here, as I have already told you, because with Charlemagne, when Charlemagne is named emperor, we're going to have the beginning of the feudal institutions, but we're also going to have the intrusion of the Vikings. So what is going to happen? If you see here, what we're going to have is this huge Frankish empire, but it is going to be surrounded by enemies. It is going to be surrounded by Arabs, by slaves. Are not esclavos. Slaves in Spanish, in this case, son eslavos, and it is a people, it is an ethnicity. We also have the Bulgars, we also have the Danes here, so over here we have the Vikings, and also they were enemies with everyone. They were enemies with England too. So this huge empire is going to be defining all these borders. If you remember, first the Roman Empire was surrounded by these barbarian peoples, and they're going to hire them in order to become foederati. Do you remember that? And these foederati that were the original barbarians, they now are the empire. Now Charlemagne is the emperor of the new, because it isn't the old one, it is a new Western Empire, and he's going to be finding these peoples to be the new savages, to be the new barbarians. So what he is going to have is all these borders. He's going to draw all these borders, and he's going to be assigning these frontiers to nobleman. He's going to be giving these frontiers to the nobleman, and this is what is going to be founding what you already know, this structure of the feudal society. Why? Because the emperor is and the king, they are going to be the main authorities, but we all are also going to have the marquises, and the marquises are precisely the guys that are going to be in charge of these borders, of these territories. Marquis comes from the word, well, it is similar to the word marca, so it is talking about a boundary, a frontier, and he's going to be choosing nobles to be ruling over these frontiers in order to take care of these frontiers, in order to protect the empire from the new savages. We have a new empire and now we have new savages. And these new barbarians are the Arabs, they are the slaves, the Bulgars, the slaves, the Danes. And he's going to be giving the marquises and the dukes and the counts the responsibility for protecting the kingdom in case of any kind of invasion or in case of any kind of conflict. So the Bellatori are going to be having that responsibility. They are going to fight mostly the marquises. The marquises are going to be guarding the frontiers, so it is going to be their responsibility to fight for the kingdom, to look for the well-being of the kingdom in terms of war. Then we're going to have the Oratory. Remember that Charlemagne was basically the most Catholic or the most Christian emperor of them all, and that is why the Pope actually named him to be the emperor. Remember that he gives the Pope these papal states, these territories in central Italy. So that is going to be the Oratory. And finally, the Laboratori are going to be all the people that are actually going to be doing something, that are actually going to be working to feed everybody. So these decisions, this structure that Charlemagne is going to be giving his empire is going to have a reflection in the whole structure of society, and it is going to be the structure that is going to be characterizing the rest of the late or low Middle Ages, so the rest of the period of the Middle Ages. But remember that we also have the Viking invasions, so that is going to cause the rise of another great king, another great kingdom, that is going to be Arthur the Great of Wessex, and he's going to be directing the campaigns against the invasion of the Normans. Well, not the Normans, sorry, against the invasion of the Vikings. And the Vikings are going to be attacking all over England. They are going to be attacking France. They are going to be attacking Spain. They are going to enter the Mediterranean Sea, and they are going to get all the way to the north part of Africa. They are going to be sacking Africa. They are going to be sacking Italy. They are going to be sacking Spain, France. And Alfred is going to be organizing England for the first time to face these invaders. So England is actually starting to unite in the hands of Arthur because of his will to oppose to the Viking intrusions. But actually France, the King Charles III, is going to be gifting the Vikings, the Count Roland, in the next century, in the 10th century. He's going to be gifting these territories of Normandy to the, Normandy over here. He's going to be gifting these territories of Normandy to the Count Roland, to the Vikings, in exchange for protection. So he's like giving him a new marquis, right? But he's making him a count. So he's giving him this county in order to protect the Franks from the Viking invasions, but just some centuries later, the Normans are going to be invading England and they're going to become the kings of England. So this is going to start with the great battle between France and England that characterizes the Middle Ages, because think about this, the French gave these territories to the Vikings in order to be protected from their invasions, but now they become a state of their own and they're going to be competing with France. So that is going to be a big issue. And basically that is the introduction to our low Middle Ages, the beginning of the feudal institutions that are going to be all this structure that Charlemagne is going to be founding, and also the Viking incursions and how they helped to model Europe as we know it. So thank you very much, boys, and see you next week.